What's up, big boys? David Rodriguez here for another episode of Fire or Flop. And today's video, as you can tell, is going to be based on yoga. And for all intents and purposes, for tricking and or strength and conditioning in general, we're going to include all forms of yoga: hot yoga, flow yoga, regular yoga, all that stuff. Because from what I've seen, all the approach may be different, but the methodology remains the same, with the intent and express purpose of gaining flexibility. Now, if you're a person who indulges in yoga for spiritual and or religious practices, this is not supposed to be an affront to you. We're purely looking at it through the lens of strength and conditioning, and we'll be looking at it again through the three criteria that I established from last week, which is what are people trying to use it for versus what it actually does. Where does it fall on a continuum? For this continuum, it will be mobility versus flexibility. And then, are there other exercises? Are there other things that you can do, other methodologies that you can do that do what yoga does, but better, if any? So, without further ado, let's get to it. So, what does yoga actually do versus what people are trying to use it for? And when I see people try to use it for, the most typical response is, hey, will yoga make me better at tricking? And the answer is no, because, and it's typically with the express purpose of, if I have more flexibility, I'm going to be better at kicking, and I'm going to be better at variations. And and this has never been said, but I think the three variations that matter the most for having mobility are shurikens, crowd awakeners, and the scissor variation. Just because of how wide and arcing you're supposed to pull your legs apart to have that very nice aesthetic. Now, I know tons of people who can do their front splits, who have middle splits, and guess what? They don't have kicks like Aiden Kennedy. They don't have the toe point. They don't have the leg extension. I know people with front splits and middle splits who, again, they can't do gainer scissors. They don't have a scissor variation. They don't even have shurikens. They don't even really have good crowd awakeners. It's because flexibility does not equal mobility, and it is not active. What it really, yoga, and for what I've seen from most of the practice of the methodology behind it, is for developing flexibility and or for engaging in recovery, which are, flexibility is great and it's fine, but do not confuse it with mobility. And it's great if you're using it for recovery and kind of like a peace of mind, wellness of mind thing, as long as you're not pushing yourself to the extreme end ranges of motion that you have. So, without further ado, we will now segue into the second part, which is, where does it fall within the flexibility and mobility camp? And obviously you kind of know my thought behind this, so here we go. So, where does yoga fall, in my opinion, on this flexibility mobility scale? I believe it firmly belongs in flexibility and not with mobility. If we're looking for methodologies that help develop strength, resiliency, and stability, we should be looking at things kind of like FRC and weightlifting in general. Now, I place yoga over here in the flexibility category because from the things that I've seen and what I've experienced is that when we go into a position in a yoga pose, you just hold it for X amount of time, for maybe like 30 seconds or maybe a minute. It just depends on what you're doing. Now, you can almost, this isn't a slight to what I'm about, this isn't a slight to the sport that I'm about to say, but you can almost relate to the isometric holds to b-boy freezes. Now, that doesn't mean that b-boy freezes are dumb or stupid or anything. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that because of the isometric, and you're just sitting there holding it, the positions that yoga has, it doesn't translate very well to tricking, because tricking is all about the flow, all about movement. We're all about like the just the flow, man, the style. That's what it's all about. Now, obviously, same thing with b-boy, right? B-boy has all the good stuff: flow, style, creativity, movement. But obviously, freezes work a lot better with b-boy styles of battles than it really kind of does with tricking. It's very rare that I see a well executed freeze with trickers and in a tricking combo. But, and again, and like I said, so in the 4 criteria that I listed earlier that would benefit, and people that are probably trying to get better at, are variations in kicks. And again, the 3 variations that I think really benefit from having mobility are shurikens, crowd awakeners, and scissors. But I know plenty of people who have their middle splits and they have their front splits, but guess what? They still can't gainer scissors very well, or they still can't crowd awakener very well, and they still can't, and they don't have Aiden Kennedy style of kicks where the extension is all the way, like, it's literally him just doing a front split, just about. But people with front splits can't hit that same aesthetic that Aiden Kennedy does, because it's not about flexibility. It's about mobility, and it's about actual practice in those positions, none of which that yoga really has. So, with this in mind, now, what can we do to actually, now are there any exercises that can do what yoga is supposed to do for us, or what I've seen people try to make yoga do for them? Let's find out. Are there any exercises that we can do that is better than yoga and is better than what people try to make yoga, if that makes sense? So let's see. For example, if you want these better kicks, everything, just practice your kicks, right? It's not hard. Put in some time. And not even just like regular kicks, actually like slow kicks. So like what I mean by slow kicks is that I remember I had to do this and it was awful and it hurt real bad, but I do it anyways. Is that, right, you take your foot, point it towards the wall, you lift, and again, I'm not perfect because I never do Taekwondo or anything like that, but I have Taekwondo friends and Tang Soo Do friends who do this all the time. And you just point that toe, right, everything comes up, squeeze, point those toes, just like that. Now, obviously that's not perfect, but the idea is, and do them slow, like 30 reps. 30 reps of ground kicks, 30 reps of hook kicks, 30 reps of side kicks, things like that. Really develop the muscles that are located within your hips, your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings for extension and retraction, all the good stuff. Kicks, slow kicks. Right now, and it's the same thing for learning variations. Practice your 180 shurikens, practice your cheat 7, practice any kind of crescent kick if you really want the crescent kick aesthetic for your shurikens. If you want a nice crowd awakener, just practice pop crowd awakener from standing. You don't even have to do it within any kind of twisting yet. Understand the movement first and getting that nice extension before you start moving on to the harder stuff. Build your base. Build your base first before you do anything else. Now, then that goes for variations and kicks. Easy, just trick. Most people say that anyways. Now, if we're looking to build resiliency and strength and stability, again, like I put in the mobility flexibility scale, research things like FRC. Ian Markow, he does a very great, he posts up free kin stretch classes that all focus on developing mobility in your hips, in your knees, and in your ankles. This is a very good resource. Ian Markow. weightlifting. Now, weightlifting doesn't necessarily translate directly to tricking, but again, similar to building your base, weightlifting is a way that you can build your body first to make it durable and resilient before you start going and throwing your body into the air and doing multiple twists and landing really hard on your ankles, your knees, and your hips. All of which are things that yoga doesn't really do. So, in case you just didn't pick this up from the very first time I started talking about it, obviously yoga is actually I'll use the red marker. Yoga, I don't know because that's fire. Yoga is a flop. At least in my experience when it comes to tricking, and if you want to get better at tricking, focus on building your variations. If you're looking to become more durable and more mobile resilient, look up things like functional range conditioning, Ian Markout, or understand how to properly engage in weightlifting and strength and conditioning. My name is David Rodriguez. Friday's fire or flop. Yoga's a flop, in my opinion. If you have questions, arguments, concerns, complaints, please let me know. If you like this kind of educational content for tricking, please like, subscribe, follow me, Instagram, stomped.tricking, and I will catch y'all next week. Peace.